Welcome back. My name is Patrick Nolan. I'm an attorney licensed in the state of Missouri. This is Pat Talks Law, Windshield Time. We haven't had many windshield times recently, so this is, it's almost like a throwback. Courts in Missouri have been closed since the early part of March. Courts are still closed. In fact, the Missouri State Supreme Court has extended the court closure through May 1st. However, there are exceptions to those closures. One of the exceptions is, the exceptions to closures include criminal law, constitutional matters like speedy trials, things like that. It includes juvenile matters. It includes constitutional rights issues. There are limited exceptions. So I am headed to court now in another county on one of the limited exceptions. And what I want to talk to you about today are the exceptions, not for courts, but to these stay-home orders. You know, a lot of communities, counties, and states have issued stay-home orders. You know, you can't go out in groups of more than 10. You can't congregate. If you are in public, you have to stay 6 feet away from each other. And a lot of those are acceptable orders. However, included in these orders is a ban on church services, ordering churches to be closed. There's a problem with that, and it's the First Amendment to the Constitution of the United States. Congress shall make no law concerning the establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof. Prohibiting the free exercise thereof is exactly what these stay-home orders are doing. And they are closing churches and closing funerals. Now, I think we can all agree, before we go any farther, that churches should be closing and suspending services at the moment, just in the interest of safety of their congregation. And there are many ways that you can deliver religious services during a crisis like this that doesn't involve all getting together in a building. My particular church, I'm Catholic, our diocese suspended in-person religious services through the end of April as well. And I'll tell you that makes it very, very interesting during the Easter season. The fact that we are not going to have Easter Sunday service at church, we're not going to be going to Mass is a big thing. Not going to church during holy days of obligation is a massive. I have to explain that to my children. The importance of that and why we aren't going. And that's fine. That's my job as a parent, and that's our church's job. Our Pope, our Bishop has laid out some guidelines and said, look, you're not going. We're not going to have Mass. And that's fine. But that was a decision by our church leaders and our church community. And similar decisions have been made by other faith leaders and their faith communities. And that's the way it should be. There's a big difference between a voluntary decision made by the faith and the state closing the doors to your church. A very, very big difference. So, can the government close the doors to your church with these stay-home orders? The answer to that is not an easy answer. I wish I could say it was a simple yes or no, and it isn't. Okay, it would fall under strict scrutiny, and the government has to show that there is a compelling government interest and that the method used is narrowly tailored to achieve that interest. So, would a broad ban on any groups be narrowly tailored? It could be. Given the compelling government interest, that could be most narrowly tailored. However, limiting to 10 people for a church that typically has 500 in it, that is not necessarily narrowly tailored when we have other social distancing guidelines. So the communities have an issue that, quite frankly, they need to sort out, because I'm not sure that they're actually going to win that case if it goes to court. The order has to be narrowly tailored, expressing significant government interest, or compelling government interest, not significant. So, is there a history, is there precedent that would allow this? And the answer is yes. Okay, there is. We're not going to write off a third of the country's population because they refuse to follow the health guidelines. We're just not going to do that. Historically, vaccination over religious objection has been upheld. Okay? When there's a compelling government interest and that's narrowly tailored, you have to get the vaccination. Then that was upheld. It was a Massachusetts case, and I don't remember it off the top of my head. In that case, they were arguing free exercise because they didn't want to have the vaccination. That's still a more limited case than closing doors and saying you can't go to church. I have a real problem with that as an order. I think that it's flawed. I think that that's a mistake. Frankly, I don't trust any government with the authority and power to suspend the Bill of Rights anytime they will. It is extremely difficult to take that back from them once we cede that to them. So with that in mind, let's talk about what the balancing act that courts are going to have to do when they're weighing this. First, what is compelling government interest? In this case, these orders state the interest. To prevent the entrance of COVID-19 into the community. Okay? That would be a compelling government interest, except for the fact that, one, COVID-19 is already in the community. Two, the people going to that church are community members, not necessarily outsiders. That instead of closing doors to church, they could limit it to regular parishioners and limit the access to outsiders for that protection. And what would be a way that they could achieve that compelling government interest, again, narrowly tailored, is what the resolution has to be. So, in the case where it's already in the community, the order, if it says prevent the entrance of the illness in the community, that's not going to cut it because it's already there, so your entire order is moot. Now, if it's entrance and or spread of the illness in the community, that's a different story. Preventing the spread is what they really want to do, since it's already here. In that case, there is a compelling government interest to prevent the spread. Now, is closing the church narrowly tailored? Well, no, I don't think so, and here's why. We have pages of exceptions. We're accepting all manner of businesses that we deem essential, that someone has deemed essential. I'm not sure that I agree with that, but going to work and operating the takeout window at the fast food restaurant is acceptable, but not praying to our God. You see where I'm going with this? Fast food is not essential. And one of the problems I have with this is the people that you would expect would be standing up and saying, whoa, 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 you can't go there, should be the atheists. Because they have reaped the benefit of all the legal arguments I'm making for years. But if the state can stomp on religion, it can stomp on anything. So, yeah. There is not an easy answer here. It'll be a case specific in every area where this comes up. You know, if your church has been closed by government order, whether or not you're going to go and have meetings, you probably ought to be thinking about challenging that, because the government does not have the authority or the power to arbitrarily close your church doors. If they can do it for this, they can do it for other things. I'm sorry, it's inconvenient to have so many cars on the street at the time of your church meeting because we have a soccer game going on at the high school. Now, the other restrictions on people attending funeral services. Okay? You know, some faiths, we can put the body on ice for a month and do a funeral later. But there are some faiths where that person has to be buried within 3 days. You know, this is a critical component of their faith, and that presents a significant issue. And I'm not merely talking about Christianity, I'm talking about other faiths. Okay? These are very important things. Now, most people are going to try and find a way to work with the social distancing, even though I don't like the phrase social distancing. It should be physical distancing. With the physical distancing guidelines, because they understand the importance of the situation. However, barring faith activities is the absolute wrong thing to do in a crisis. Well, that is my thoughts today, driving up to court for a hearing. You know, think about the constitutional rights that you are surrendering during the crisis, and ask yourself, is it really necessary that you be surrendering those constitutional rights? If the answer is no, I'm not saying go out there and publicly violate that. God, I wouldn't. But you may want to think about what recourse you should be taking. And for some people, hey, maybe filing suit after crisis is over. Saying, hey, you can't do that. You shouldn't have done that. It may be filing a suit now. It may be, there may be other recourses available to you. An injunction barring the government from doing that. And the government shouldn't care if you're not meeting, so no harm, no foul. We're done. Anyway, that's my thoughts for the day. Thank you for watching. Please hit like, subscribe. Hopefully we'll get some more window times coming up as things reopen. And I have absolutely no idea why the highways are actually this freaking clogged while we're supposed to be staying home. I mean, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 cars coming the other way in that short time period. It's crazy. Stay safe. We'll be talking to you soon.